We've been here meeting in Tallinn since Sunday evening already, and had several discussions, and maybe just few notes from my side what I've heard. So I think that overall all countries agree that teachers remain central to education. Probably it's not a surprise, but it has been very unanimous thought. And since together in this summit we have unions and policymakers together, I think this mutual understanding is very important here. Although countries do different significantly in their approaches on AI, which I'm sure we're going to hear more about, how to use it, how much to use it. But overall, I think it's been a summit with a lot of collaboration and more of mutual understanding than differences, which has been pretty nice. And I will give first the word to Minister Kallas, please.
Thank you. So, dear journalists, we met with you, some of you, on Monday when we were informing about what our intentions and expectations were towards the summit, and now it's the moment to tell you where did we reach when we discussed various things. I think for most of the ministers and heads of delegations, the most exciting part of the summit is always the school visits, because that's when you see the action going on the ground with your own eyes. So it was a tremendous honor for Estonia to host this, I think, the most important summit, global summit on education, which takes place every year. And we had 20 Estonian schools that opened their doors to the visitors, from kindergartens to vocational schools and universities. And my observation from those visits is that whether this was kindergarten or whether this was basic school or gymnasium, the autonomy that our schools have in the system, how much they have the professional agency to design and develop their own approaches to education and teaching, was something that came back to me as the main feedback from most of the participating states, whether this was in kindergarten, how the kids were autonomously engaging in play, or how much there is an autonomy to school leadership to design the decisions regarding teaching, hiring teachers, equipment that is in a school, how much digital the school is, or how much textbooks they are actually using. So this was, I think Estonian schools showed many lessons in action. So they were visiting lessons. And I think that was most big learning experience. Now, regarding the discussions, we discussed about the teaching profession and the future of the teaching profession. And countries around the table agreed, I think, on one thing. First, that teacher will be there in the future and AI is not going to replace the teachers. That's not the prognosis that we see as education leaders. We would rather see that there will be need for more teachers because there is much more personalized approach to education. But what we all agreed is that intensity of the work of the teacher, how much teacher has to manage issues and things within this 1 hour of work that they are doing, has increased tremendously in past decade. And that's across the countries, across the boards, the same feeling that intensity of the teacher's work has increased. And we as education leaders need to look into that issue, whether this intensity is actually productive when it comes to the well-being of teachers and well-being of students in the classroom. So that was a common thing. On AI, we could see around the table during the summit discussions that countries diverge very much on the approach to the AI. I would say that teacher unions and teacher representatives were more cautious, more on the need to have support and regulation. Policymakers were much more eager to see the opportunities. But countries indeed are still in a very different approaches and stages when it comes to implementing AI or accepting AI in education. So we see here different paths, at least initial different paths taken by various countries. So this is a conclusion of our discussions. and especially of our school visits. So I think for Estonian journalists, the big curiosity is to ask the schools that hosted our delegations and what was the experience, because from the delegations, what we hear is that exactly the way teachers work in a very autonomous way in schools is something that is impressive, how big there is autonomy on the ground and how much our principals and teachers have the agency to make decisions when it comes to pedagogical questions. So that's a conclusion now for me. Thank you.
Thank you. And secondly, please, Remo Voltri.
Thank you. ICTP 2026 has been a highly valuable summit. It has provided an opportunity to highlight topics that are currently relevant for educators in Estonia, ranging from teachers' salaries and autonomy to the use of artificial intelligence in schools. Across all the countries represented here, there is one important point on which everyone clearly agrees. Teachers remain at the very center of education systems. From the perspective of Estonia, the summit has also reaffirmed something we already know well. Estonian teachers are highly professional and their work is respected internationally. Our teachers are accustomed to a significant degree of professional autonomy, and this will remain crucial as education systems continue to evolve. Teachers must have the freedom to make pedagogical decisions based on the needs of their students. At the same time, Estonia, like many other countries, facing important challenges. One of the most significant challenges in the education sector is the growing shortage of teachers. The main reason for this are insufficient salaries and an unreasonably high workload. We see that amid the many changes affecting the education sector, the already heavy workload of teachers continues to increase. Technological changes add another important dimension to these discussions. In Estonian schools, we are currently working to ensure that the integration of artificial intelligence into teaching is guided to responsible. This requires additional effort from teachers and continuous adjustment to teaching and learning. The Estonian Educational Personnel Union therefore advocates for ensuring that, amid all these changes, the well-being and workload of education professionals are also properly taken into account. I would also like to emphasize that despite the rapid development of artificial intelligence, we do not see AI replacing teachers. Artificial intelligence can certainly be a valuable tool in the learning process, but the core of education remains the human connection between teachers and students. Finally, it is important to emphasize that teachers' organizations must remain at the table as equal partners in all discussions about education policy, when teachers' working conditions are sustainable and their voices are genuinely heard, students benefit directly. I would like to thank everyone who has contributed to making this summit possible and to all those who have participated in this important conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. And next, OECD, please, Mr. Schleicher.
Yeah, thanks so much. And first of all, it's been an absolute privilege to be part of this ISTP. You know, the moment you walk into the summit, you feel that this is not about line-by-line negotiations about, some agreement. This is about conversation of trust, the conversation about the real questions of our time, and the strive for real answers. And I think that really what makes us special. And our Estonian hosts have been, extraordinary in creating the right atmosphere for that. An atmosphere of openness, of sincerity, and also real genuine exchange. And in many ways, Estonia is the perfect host for that kind of exchange. It's the poster child for education in Europe. It has shown us that excellence is not isolated, but can be shared, consistently achieved throughout the system. And also it's translating, bold ambitions into classroom reality. Many people outside this country think this is all like some kind of fairy tale, but then you visit schools and you see that reality. You see how excellence is being created. You can see that success is not primarily about money. No. It's about ambition. It's about, that capacity to translate ideas into practice. And you can really feel that, and that really is something my deepest gratitude to the students and teachers who shared their time very, very generously for us. People here often talk about that tiger leap in the 1990s, but you visit classroom and you can see that that tiger never stopped, that tiger keeps flying. And what impressed me most when I spoke with teachers is that they feel proud to be part of this transformation here, and I think that's a big, big lesson to learn. So, of course, events like the ISTP are never easy. This is about, aligning interests that can diverge, across countries, across, social partners. But what the ISTP also shows us that social partnership, genuine exchange is the only way how we find answers to the big questions of our times. And again, the ISTP is really a model for that. I think we just heard that, the biggest, I think, shared belief here is that education is relational, is built on trust, is built on human connection, and that is why teachers are so essential today and will be more essential in the future tomorrow. In the world in which we live, the demands on teachers are rising. We see increasing social fragmentation. We see, also, challenges about society investing enough, capital into the future rather than just on present issues. I think those are very, very real issues confronting teachers, and we expect teachers to live the future today that we want to see in our students tomorrow. And society is not always with them. And that becomes very, very clear. I think, one answer that also was quite shared is that we need to shift from vertical structures in education to lateral structures. They're not looking upwards in System for Answers, but looking outwards, to the next teacher, to the next school. Many countries reminded us on this, and that, made the topic of professional autonomy so essentially, again, a model that we can see here in Estonia, but, other countries made important points that autonomy without structure, without support, easily leads to isolation, leads to idiosyncratic practice. Now, autonomy, as one country put it, should never be a license for outdated practice or habit rather than, professional wisdom. And I think those tensions are ones that we will need to mention. Then, the third topic on everybody's mind, artificial intelligence. Now, what will it do? And I think one really, really important conclusion reached in the ISTP is that on the one hand, we have a rapidly advancing industry that provides amazing solutions to us, but we have very fragmented local markets for that. And that makes education actually a rather weak participant in that discussion. And international collaboration, stronger kind of international collaboration can, help us to define shared expectations and also to be clearer about, guidelines and guardrails that ensure that the solutions that we obtain are the ones that help our children best. What is very clear during our discussions, learning is not about the consumption of content. Is about, that cognitive effort, that cognitive struggle, that human relationship. And that is what we need to protect, and that is what teachers will need to protect. The question of age appropriateness came very clearly into the discussion. A 6 and 16-year-old are not seeing the same reality. No. For younger children, it is our collective responsibility to ensure that solutions are developmentally appropriate. So I think many big questions that countries struggle with, but also very, very clear kind of the shared space that we find here is so much greater than the differences in solutions. Thank you.
Thank you. And Education International gets the word the last. Please, Mr. Edwards.
Thank you very much. I also want to add my deepest of appreciation to Minister Kallas and the team and to Remo for really bringing to life something that we've long dreamed about. And one of the things that before I go into sort of the different specifics, I wanted to sort of reflect on my school visit. And I brought with me a little leaf that was given to me by a student, by a kindergartner, when I arrived at the school. And the leaf brought us into different groups. And with those groups, we were going to explore what their day was. And it was a Tuesday outside of the classroom. It was a Tuesday outside. They were not going to go inside. 4-year-olds outside all day. They were going to play in the mud. They were going to run around. They were going to maybe get their boots wet. They were going to have all sorts of dangerous things. And I sat there looking at it, and I was thinking about how this very much represents the infrastructure of trust, which I think is at the heart of successful education system. It's certainly at the heart of the Estonian education system. And talking to the teachers in that school and talking to the principal there, I got more and more convinced that tools, time, and trust, done right, done deliberatively, done purposefully, in a respectful way, with the right conditions to support them, with the right salaries, the right voice, the right opportunities for their own development, that collaborative professionalism is what really, I think, is at the heart of why Estonia does what it does and continues to do what it does. But I have to say, I'm coming here at a time of the world where I haven't been very happy everywhere I've been. So it's not just OECD countries. I travel the world. I'm with the teachers of all countries. And there's a feeling that multilateralism, that cooperation is now out. The ISTP shows that it's still very much relevant. The ISTP shows that the values and the principles that hold us together, that we can learn from each other, that we can decide that we're going to move forward together, maybe at different speeds. Maybe we have different takes, but we can respect each other's opinions. We can respect the fact that we have to marshal evidence, we have to support that, we have to be in a dialogue with each other, union, representatives, ministers of education. I think that's the real key of the ISTP, is that we actually practice what we want to see in the education systems in the schools that we're supporting around the world. We have a 44 million teacher shortage worldwide, 44 million teachers. That's also teachers not wanting to go into the profession, but also teachers leaving the profession. And that has a lot of factors, and we know from Talis what many of those factors are, what the push and the pull factors are. But at the heart of that, it has to do with the fact that teachers, when they feel respected, when the time, tools, and trust and conditions represent that respect in a real way that they can feel, so that they have the professional autonomy to do what I felt so great when I was with those kids. I didn't even want to leave to come back and be in the hall. I was reminding myself why I became a teacher so many years ago. But when we get it right, it's magic. It's about the relationships, the student-teacher relationship. And that's what we have to protect, and that's what this dialogue has to protect, above and beyond. In terms of AI, certainly we're going to need to make sure that some of the more deceptive anthropomorphic AIs are not going to build engagement or attachment with children that they should be having with their teachers, with their friends, with their peers. We will have to make sure human beings are at the front of that. And yeah, I think it will mean some regulations. And Estonia is going to go first in many ways, and it's going to be coming back and telling us how it's going, because we have different realities, but those were on full display. But beyond those differences was our similar collective responsibility and belief in the power of education. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Please, Kristina.
Yes, thank you. I want to add, because I visited 2 schools together with international delegations. One of the schools are Russian-speaking school in a very non-affluent district where most of the families don't live out of salaries, but on the social benefit support. So it's a socioeconomically very disadvantaged region. And what impressed, I think, me personally as well, was the ability to school to explain openly, and it's not about English, it's about the international communication skills that the team of teachers and principals in this school had to be able to communicate internationally with the guests, and not only international guests, also Estonian guests, to be open. So they are really open. They communicate with the outside world. They involve international communities in it. So this was a very impressive visit to Mahtra Põhikool. And the second school we visited yesterday is Ristiku Riikliku Põhikool, where 80% of the students have a learning disability. Some of them intellectual disabilities, the other kids have learning disabilities. We visited one class where there were only 4 kids because it's a so-called small class, väike klass. And then in the middle of the lesson, one boy, I mean, they were 16 years old, they were 9th graders. One boy just stood up. First, he made a fantastic explanation about what he wants to achieve in life in English to everybody, astonishment, and then explained how he's working hard. He knows he has a disability, he knows he has a difficulty in math, but he wants to get to gymnasium, and that's his goal. And he thinks the teachers are great in supporting him. And it was very impressive in a way how he was able to explain what he wants and what his learning goal is. I mean, he was very vocal about his learning goal. And so my impressions personally also of the school visits were very impressive, to be honest, because we didn't pick the nice, cozy schools. We gave a huge variety of schools where our visitors went. And I think the visitors got the whole picture of Estonian education system, the whole scale that is there for us. And kindergartens turned out to be the most popular and the most loved places to go.
Yes, and you are all welcome back to Estonia, so we can take you more to those visits. Absolutely. Thank you for these remarks. And now I will give some time for journalists to ask questions. But I have kind request to you that when you ask, we're going to hand a mic over to you, because we're also streaming and those people who watch us will not hear otherwise. So is there anyone who would like to propose a question? Yes, please.
Hi, I'm Kelly Teidla from Delphi. I wanted to ask, it was mentioned that the opinions about using AI in education is divided. Could you please reflect on that? What were the main concerns or points that were brought out from those discussions?
Yes. Policymakers or the ministers were much more maybe stressing the opportunities or the need to move in with an AI into education, but the teachers coming from the field and knowing what's happening in the classroom and how the learning process actually takes place, I would say that they were calling for more cautious approach. Not sure whether this has to be a fast rollout into the education system without any guardrails for teachers as well to hold and be, know what's going on and how this learning process takes place. So the teachers called for much more caution. They said they called for more regulation help, what is allowed, how should the approach be, and of course for more training. So there was a little bit diverging views in terms of how much should there be regulation first before you go with an AI into this, or how much you need to go in because the kids are already using it, and then along the way adjust the regulations as well. So there was this debate going around the table quite intensively, and I think countries have different approaches here. Some countries move fast forward very quickly. Some countries take much more regulative approach to the AI, and I would say more cautious approach. But what we all agreed on, and I think David from the teacher side can confirm, is that it's a fast-moving speed train that we are just trying to jump on. It's the question like, how do you jump? What's your strategy of jumping on it?
David, please.
Yeah, I would just add that, the teaching profession is one of the oldest professions. And so I like to refer to us not just as knowledge workers, but wisdom workers. And that wisdom is distilled through our experience and through our values and through our knowledge. And one of the things about wisdom is you don't always move super fast and just run into a room. You kind of check it out. You have sort of different ways that you triangulate what you know, and you bring all that together to make a decision based on your own professional discretion. So for us, when it comes to the issues around cognitive offloading, when we're seeing that AI is being used and the teacher has nothing to do with it, and it's a sycophantic AI, it's not a Socratic AI, yes, we have very real concerns. When we see attachment, the developmental issues, and so we do want to see some regulations around these companies that I think sometimes have more of a market, how shall I say, incentive to engage and continually get those eyeballs and not really think about asking the best questions the most pedagogically appropriate way. So that also explains some of our hesitation. But I wouldn't say it's hesitation as much as it's wanting to move in the most wise way possible together.
Thank you. Any more questions?
Yes, I wanted to continue with that. Is there anybody or any country that has showed interest in joining the AI leap already?
Absolutely. I mean, you can see actually huge variation across countries. If you go to countries like Singapore and the United Arab Emirates, actually almost every teacher is now using AI in their daily work, like in Estonia. At the other end of the spectrum, you can see countries like France or Japan, where it's 5 in 100, where teachers are, very hesitant to engage with those kinds of forces. And what we do see, actually, a big predictor of that difference is where teachers themselves are learners. In a country like Estonia, where teachers are, active learners themselves, they're also much more innovative in exploring new ideas and testing new ideas and being critical consumers. One of the interesting findings about Estonia is that on the one hand, teachers are, innovative, using the technologies, but they also belong to the most critical teachers of AI, the most concerned teachers of AI. And I do think, that balance is the strength of the teaching profession here, not to hesitate, but to engage in a way that, is reflective and advancing this. And clearly, the opportunities are incredible. It's probably the first time that we have that real possibility to make learning truly adaptive, truly personal, particularly students with special needs. It's the first time they get a real chance to actually engage in some learning. At the same time, I think, as David highlights, we see how students outsource their thinking, how teachers outsource that most important part of work, evaluating students' work or planning their lessons. And I think those are the risks that need to be managed. And I think Minister Kallas made that point in a very important way. It's about finding that right balance between, on the one hand, enabling, and on the other hand, guarding against some of the risks. And I think one of the most important conclusions for me was that actually you cannot do that in the abstract. Someone in the top of government devising, regulations. You need to actually do that very much at the front line. And that's, that, correlation between teachers being learners, being actually designers of innovative learning environments. That is the kind of condition that actually will help us in the future.